and welcome to our group presentation of gamification and game-based learning in the elementary classroom. Tonight you will hear from Kimberly Marone,
Stephanie McLean,
Abigail Narenberg,
and Carrie Puccini. What is gamification and game-based learning? Gamification is a much newer concept than game-based learning. Video games can be an engaging tool to motivate learners. However, some critics say that the themes utilized may not be the most practical when it comes to education. On the other hand, if we combine the properties of video games with educational purposes, they can engage students while also giving them opportunities to problem solve and use critical thinking skills. Goss states that the design of a learning environment built on the education properties of games can be an appropriate way to improve learning. Digital games are user-centered. They can promote challenges, cooperation, engagement, and the development of problem-solving strategies. The older concept of game-based learning is harder to define. Perrotta et al. Referred to game-based learning as the use of video games to support teaching and learning. However, in order to arrive at this definition, they established that games had to meet certain principles and mechanisms in order to meet this category. Next slide. Perrotta et al. Defined 5 principles and 7 mechanisms that were needed within game-based learning. They stated that this criteria is necessary because game-based learning is so broad that it is hard to precisely define. Game-based learning has intrinsic motivation, meaning that play is voluntary and self-driven. The learning takes place through intense enjoyment. The learning is goal-oriented rather than abstract learning. Interest in play is self-reliant and autonomous, meaning interest in the game leads to wanting to specialize. Additionally, learning takes place through experimental learning. As for the mechanisms needed to define game-based learning, rules are needed. They can be simple or complex. The goals must be clear but challenging. A fictional setting is present with progressively difficult levels being achieved during play. Students should be the one controlling the action and play. Feedback from the game must be immediate while also constructive. Finally, the game should have a social element that allows the students to share their experiences and build social relationships. Go ahead and take it, Abigail.
According to the Gross article, the properties of video games can be an appropriate way to improve learning. However, due to the graphic nature of games and the violence, video games do not always propose desirable learning. To first look at the positive side of video games improving learning, video games do offer challenges to students and require them to collaborate in some instances. Video games also keep students more engaged and develop students' problem-solving strategies. In the Perrotta article completed in 2013, 5 studies were conducted that specifically targeted problem-solving strategies, and all 5 studies saw an improvement in the students' ability to problem solve. In the same article, 8 studies examined the impact video games had on student motivation and engagement, and found that 6 out of the 8 studies saw an increase due to the immediate feedback provided to students via praises and encouragement. One student who served as a participant in one of the studies found the video gaming to be more enjoyable and active because video games have a way of sparking a curiosity in students, something that is not found in traditional classrooms. Video games also aid in the development of reading 3D images. Can you go back for me?
Oh, sorry.
No problem. Video games also aid in the development of reading 3D images. They develop students' learning through observation and broaden students' understanding of scientific simulations. And next slide. Now, to take a look at the negative side of video games of the studies that were conducted in the Perrotta article, there were not promising results in regard to academic achievement improving. It was also mentioned in the same article that it was unclear if the positive influence video games had from the studies conducted could be sustained over time. Additionally, using games in the classroom takes a lot of time for the students and teacher to guide themselves through the game. Therefore, it is a huge deterrent, especially with teachers who are trying to figure out a way to integrate the game within their curriculum. And now to Kimberly.
So now you might ask, hearing the both positives and negatives of gamifying digital literacy instruction, what now? We simply cannot go back to a time when digital technology was not part of our everyday lives. According to Kaltman in 2019, there's simply no shortage of people assigning blame for students' poor reading performance. Perhaps traditional instructional materials are part of that problem. Digital game-based learning may be part of the solution. Ask yourself, while keeping the standards in mind, what game could I play? When creating games for our youngest learners, you need to create learning experiences that invoke intrinsic motivation, learning through enjoyment and are fun, are authentic, and a learning environment that is learning by doing. This goes back to creating hands-on, purposeful, real-world learning tasks. Next slide, please. Visual presentation of text is often overlooked as a method of reading instruction. Reluctant readers, such as dyslexic students, often have inefficient visual tracking and difficulties in serial scanning of print. These students often struggle with fluency by third grade when they are expected to transition to novels. Gross in 2007 noted that the difference between e-learning and a game is related to the content. And in e-learning experiences, content is the most important thing, while the experience is the most important aspect of a game. Video games create experiences in which learners are immersed in situations in which they think with tools and resources with the aim of complex problem solving. Next slide.
Examples of gamification and game-based learning. Two of the examples that we chose were an impossible to fail quiz and a digital breakout. These two resources are easily implemented into the curriculum. Teachers have the ability to create these game-like situations based on any specific content. These are 100% realistic and reachable examples that teachers have access to. Every teacher has access to a Google account, which is how these two gamification and game-based learning examples are created. An impossible to fail quiz is a quiz-like game that can be competition. It collects points as you accurately answer questions. You can earn badges and achievements based on how the instructor designs it. There's instant feedback to the user that is constructive. It is student-driven and adaptive to meet the student's needs. The way an impossible fail quiz works is a student is able to answer questions online. If they answer the question incorrectly, they are prompted to get some remediation or reteaching on a specific resource. This one that you can see on your screen is a video, okay? Once the students watch the video and they press next, it'll take them back to the question for them to change their answer. It only allows them to go on when the answer is correct. Then they'll see the next question. These activities are used by teachers to implement specific content. So this content was colonial culture in North Carolina. I have also included directions on how to accurately, step-by-step, create a Google form that is the impossible to fail quiz. The next example is a digital breakout. A digital breakout is an online escape room that challenges students to think critically and collaborate with their peers. Breakouts can be easily created using Google Suites as well, and any available resource online. Teachers can create breakouts with a mission for students, which gives it that simulation or avatar type feel. Students can be working to meet a goal, such as breaking out of the locks before the time runs out. Students can also earn points through breaking out of the locks, challenge peers to a competition. Critical thinking skills are put to the test. They can earn badges and achievements as they progress and when they break out. They get instant feedback based on choices. If the answer is incorrect, the lock does not open, and students know that they need to go back to their resources and try again. It is a fictional setting, it is student-driven, and it allows students to collaborate if the teacher allows. This is a digital breakout on how to build a digital breakout. It is a resource that allows teachers to link a bunch of resources for students to find and use their critical thinking skills to solve. This is a list specifically of digital breakout lock resources. Each one of these resources challenges students. There's a fake concert ticket which students have to explore the text to find the appropriate clue, whether it's a number or a word. There's also a fake fake Facebook account that can be uploaded. Teachers are also able to create Google drawings and other Google documents or puzzles that build on each other to reveal a secret code. Once the puzzle is complete, students can see the specific code and then type the answers into the locks. Once the locks are released, students earn the badges to move on. For implementing this instruction to school leaders or PD, I introduced my teachers to this digital breakout. It allowed teachers to practice what the students would actually be doing. It was a friendly competition while learning how to implement this instructional strategy. Another example of game-based learning is online programs such as iStation, which is ELA and math, iReady, which is also ELA and math, Dreambox, which is focused on mental math, Vocabulary, that is all content areas, and SumDogs, which is math. These are all simulation games that have the students independently progressing through lessons. It is student-centered and self-navigated. Students are always in control. It is engaging for students since it is a game-like video game. Fictional setting, most that have an avatar the students build from the beginning. Self-paced and adaptive. Students receive feedback as they move through the lessons. There are also points, badges, and rewards such as achievements as they progress, and they also can earn prizes. Social competent, it is social competent that allows students to compete against each other and challenge each other to compete. Some challenges that we face as teachers are time restraints and lack of resources. The text says that it is difficult for teachers to identify how a particular game is relevant to some component of the curriculum, as well as appropriateness of the content within the game. Game-based learning supports learners' digital literacy by giving them the adaptability to read images such as pictures, diagrams, and other multimedia. Those challenges that I just discussed are easily not challenges when using these two examples of impossible to fail quiz and digital breakout. According to Squire 2005, video games create experiences in which the learners are immersed in situations in which they think the tools and resources with the aim of complex problem solving. Again, that is a challenge for some, but using these two examples, it is easy for students to stay with the curriculum as well as problem solve. Students also advance their digital literacy skills by challenging them to think critically, collaborate, and communicate with one another and their peers. Instructors need to be able to use game-based learning in an effective and efficient way to help students master a concept. This requires teachers to be formally trained on how to implement digital literacy and technology into daily use and to build 21st century learners. As the ITF, I would suggest offering optional PDs for teachers to come learn some basic ways to integrate digital literacy and game-based learning while still following instruction and the curriculum. These are two examples that will be easy to do since teachers are already familiar with the Google Suites. Teachers are just like students. They have a variety of learners and they have different teaching styles. With that combination, sometimes there comes hesitation. So you also need a slow progression and support from administration. These are our references. The end.